What does it mean to be a man in today's evolving world? How do we as men not only step up as men in this world, but transform the definition of masculinity itself? To be the lovers, the heroes, and the role models that the world so desperately craves. How do we begin to recreate our connection to manhood? This is that movement. We are ushering in a new generation of men and a new definition of masculine power to radically transform your sex life, your love life, your work life, and your world. I am Destin, and this is The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. This week's podcast is a little bit different. I've taken different parts of my recent Evolved Masculine presentation in Byron Bay at the Taste of Love, and I've split it into sections. I released part of it last week, and if you didn't listen to it, I highly recommend it. And there, I really lay out the vision of what the Evolved Masculine is. As well as do a guided visualization around meeting and connecting it to your own Evolved Masculine archetype. What I'm sharing with you today is different segments of another portion of that presentation. This is really just exploring, I'm really impacted by the intensity of what's going on in the United States today and repositioning of, values and power that seems to be taking place in different ways throughout the world. And the way in which it's impacting me made its way into this presentation, and particularly around what does the Evolved Masculine have to do with the state of global affairs? I have traditionally not been overtly political with my work, but at the same time, what is the Evolved Masculine if not a representation of how I envision another world as being possible, my own dissatisfaction with the current state of things, and a belief that we can do better and that we can be better. And of course, part of that involves the structures that we create, the ways in which we engage with one another on the micro scale as well as on that macro scale. I believe that we're in a unique point in history right now where we have the opportunity over the coming months or years to recreate the foundations of our societies, the foundations of our governments, the foundations of our democracy. And it's going to require us to rise up and do it. I don't just mean like rise up in protest. I mean rise up in our beingness, rise up in our consciousness, rise up in our capacity, rise up in our recognition of our interconnectedness of one another, our compassion for one another, including those who not only look different from one another, live lives that are different from one another, think radically different from one another. It's all going to go through some rapid and massive changes. But here's the thing, my whole work is about guiding people through rapid and massive changes in their own lives. And really what we're just talking about is a societal level one. So I lay out aspects of that. What's going on between men and women? What's going on between with the injustices in the world and our places in that? Who are we as men on an evolved masculine path, and how do we relate to this larger world? So I start out here laying out that foundation, and I'm going to pop in my voice in between different sections throughout here, as well as really laying out, while you have all your emotions perhaps really riled up right now, the Evolved Masculine path really to me has always been about a movement, about helping you empower yourself to find a deeper sense of your own sovereignty and control of your own life You know, an awareness and ability to create change within yourself and in the world around you. And so that's what the Evolved Masculine Path ultimately is about. And at the end, I'm going to invite you and give you an opportunity to be a part of this with us. We are pulling together our latest group of the men of the Evolved Masculine Path. And well, if you've been listening to this, if you've been resonating with this, maybe you're supposed to be a part of it this time around. We're gathering fast. We're launching strong. Listen through and take action at the end and connect. Let's make this happen. Here's part one.
I mean, it's very easy to forget being here in Byron. We're in paradise. But it's a big world out there. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of injustice. And part of the Evolved Masculine, I wasn't planning on going here, but this has been very up for me this week in the US, where yesterday was the inauguration, and it's been bringing up a lot of me, and primarily because we now have, as at least what was at one time known as the leader of the free world, helmed by a man who, to me, represents everything that the Evolved Masculine was a response to. And so it raises for me, what do I do about that? I believe very strongly that part of the Evolved Masculine is knowing who you are, knowing what your principles are, what your values are, and being a stand for those principles and values. Getting in touch with the core power that exists within you, your power to create change within yourself, as well as in the world around you. And so what are you a stand for? What are you a stand for? And where is your line in the sand? What's your enough, no more? When the planet's being raped, women all over are being raped, where is that point that we as men say, fuck this, no more, not on our watch? One of the things that's arising, that we're experiencing during this time period is with the rise of women's voice, is this rise in her voice of making clear that the epidemic of rapes and sexual assaults and abuse has to end. And starting with taking it out of the shadows and bringing it into the light as, hey, this is happening and you cannot ignore it. And again, as men, the disempowered side is, it's not me. What are you so upset about? I didn't do anything. I'm one of the good guys. Let me just be blunt. That does not make you a good guy. When there is pain and violence and rape and assault going on all around, if you stand there and be a bystander doing nothing, what's good about that? Again, this part wasn't necessarily intended as part of this, but these things are very hot for me right now. I believe I believe we need it. We need a call to arms. We need as men, for the events like this, pull together beautiful, heart-centered men. I love you men. I really do. And you're being called, and consider this your fucking call. You're being called to claim your power. You're being called to claim your power. You are part of this evolution that's happening on this planet, this evolution of consciousness. We have a choice at this time with humanity. Armageddon or enlightenment. We could go either way. And depending on what you're looking for, the signs are there for both. We need you. We need you to decide, you know what? I'm not going to be afraid of my own power anymore. I claim my power. Because you know what? There are plenty of men who are not heart-centered, who are claiming theirs. Do you feel the energy in the room?
I could definitely feel the energy in the room at that point. There's something, we had a little problem with the audio, so there was an issue here with, it was started speaking about what's been going on with women over the past few decades, and particularly women who have been finding a greater sense of wholeness and integration of both their masculine and feminine parts and the full capacity of expression of themselves in the world. And how, quite simply, we've got some catching up to do. And really, that's what the Evolved Masculine Path is about, really. It's about us catching up, rising up, linking arm in arm, and rising together. So, without further ado, part 2.
So often I hear from these women, where are the men? Where are the men who can truly meet us? We've just gone through these decades of discovering our capacity, and now it seems that we've outgrown men. As I said during the introduction, men are responding to this shift in women in a wide spectrum of ways, but if we were to simplify it, the two dominant things that we see are men who are pissed, who are angry at feminism, see it as the worst thing that ever happened, or in one form or another, just look at this as a zero-sum game. And too often, if we look around, if you watch your Facebook feeds or media, this is how it's always presented. That it's men versus women, women against men. Who's going to win out? That for one to rise, it has to be at the cost of the other. This battle of the sexes, this gender war, they say has been going on for ages. When is it going to end? What would that look like for it to end? And so there are men who feel very stuck in that sense, that women are taking something from men, that we have lost something in this change. And that's women's fault, essentially. And we must reassert our power so that we are men. And that's what women really want anyway, to put them back in their place. And then you have this other set of men. And again, these are generalized archetypes. The other side is this collapse in the face of her power. This, I don't want to be that man. I don't want to come across as that creep. I don't want to make her uncomfortable. I want to make sure she feels safe and she feels respected. But in the process, he has lost something of himself. He's lost his own truth. He's lost touch with his own desire. Oftentimes he's afraid of his own desire. Oftentimes afraid of his own masculinity. That if he were to fully allow himself to go there, then that is that. You know, that's masculinity, that power, that's overt expression equals this toxic behavior. And so in this bowing down, in this worshiping of the goddess, in this all hail the great feminine, he has lost his balls, his spine, his sense of self. And again, to put bluntly, men in these types of communities tend towards this side of the spectrum. And if I follow my own trajectory, I started on this side of the spectrum. Until hitting that point of recognizing something is really off here. Something is really off in me. And you know what? My woman or the women in my life this isn't actually working for them either. There is something that she is wanting, something that she's seeking, something she's needing that I don't even know what it is. I have no idea how to provide it. Maybe it's just not me. Maybe I'm just not capable of it. Maybe I'm just not that kind of guy. And so, particularly during that time period, speaking of my own journey, I wouldn't have said it at the time, but I was afraid of my own masculinity. Honestly, I was probably afraid of other men. I did great with women. Women loved me, they were super comfortable with me. But I also held them here. And in holding them here, that means also I was holding myself here. And I didn't understand why this woman that I loved so much, I would have done anything for, I would have given anything to her. What do you need, baby? How can I make you happy? What do you need? How can I make you happy? Why she wasn't happy. I didn't understand why I had this feeling inside of me like I had something that I needed to bring forth to this world, that I was here for something, and yet I wasn't doing anything. I was living in a shitty, rundown, little one-bedroom apartment that I could barely keep. And I got the sense that these two different things were somehow wrapped up in one another, that the source of the problem was connected. And skipping forward a little bit, I ended up hitting a crisis point with that. And at the end of 2006, I recognized that this had something to do with, in my desire to not be stuck in a particular gender role that I found highly problematic, I instead boxed myself in another way. And so I was going to make 2007, I can't believe that's 10 years ago now. I was going to make 2007 the year that I actively explore my masculinity and what it means to me to be a man. I had these ideas of what I felt like society had told me men were supposed to be. That growing up as a kid, or in my teenage years, or in high school, what was presented of the men who proclaimed themselves masculine and had this machismo about them that really gave me the sense of, if that's what it's supposed to be a man, I'm just not interested. But okay, I'm not 16 anymore. At the time, I'm 27, 28. What does it mean to me? Fuck society standards. What does it mean to me to be a man? And so I set off on this quest that proved to be so much more powerful than I ever imagined possible, and transformed my very being. Ellie Branham, my fiance, we've known one another for 13 years, and she's seen me through that process, the before, the during, and the after, and she'll be the first to tell you that it's almost like two different people. And I developed a process, parts of it accidentally, parts of it through trial and error, that I used to massively and rapidly transform my very being. And then I started practicing on others and finding that this is transmissible. That what I thought was just me, that this is my pain, this is my weird story, this is my issue, was actually much larger than me. That it's pandemic of our time. And other men start coming to me, and how do I, especially those who saw my process, what do you do and how can I get some? And that ended up becoming the foundation of the work that I do in the world, that I now call the evolved masculine.
Unfortunately, it took me a bit too long to figure it all out, to come to understand what was going so wrong there. And the massive amount of work that it inspired me to do, to ultimately step into my masculine, to understand my masculine, to embrace that part of myself, and all that I've created as a result of doing so. So incredibly grateful there. And as we move into part 3, we explore what our sexuality really has to do with all of this, what our sexuality has to do with the whole of who we are, yeah, and how that affects everything else that's going on in this world. Can you tell that I'm speaking to a crowd at a Tantra conference?
I really believe that we are whole beings. Our sexuality is too much of our society has basically put, there is you, there's your life, and then there's your sexuality. Is this completely separate thing that's relegated to very specific times and places. Other than that, turn that off. But that approach is part of the reason why we have these problems. By and large, and While I am speaking primarily to the men, a lot of these things that I say, you can draw your lines to women. I just believe very strongly that there are things that men right now need to be hearing. We are fucked up when it comes to our sexuality. We're fucked up in regards to our relationship to women. We're fucked up when it comes to our relationship to ourselves and our relationship to our brothers and other men. Again, gross generalization, but by and large, very true. And while there is a spectrum of what that fucked upness looks like, I believe when we have this distortion in ourselves, in our sexuality, in our relationships to women, it throws our entire being off. I don't think it's at all an accident that Donald Trump represents himself the way that he does around women and sex, and he represents himself the way that he does around power and the planet. It's not an accident. These things are all interwoven. When we are connected to her internally, when we're connected to her outside of ourselves, we connect. It's so much easier to connect more to this planet itself. When we're so much more about connecting to one another, the feminine brings us connection, an understanding of our relationship to one another. I came into this world, into the realms of Tantra through sex. I stayed for spirit. The sexual experiences have been profound, and they helped me see and experience oneness. And when you have enough oneness experiences, that melding into universal consciousness, that melding into another being, it changes how you show up in the world. When you truly know, not just intellectually, but through felt experience, that we're all one, how can you do anything but serve every person that you know, that you meet, that you don't know? Because they are you. If we are all individual consciousnesses that make up one singular consciousness, and this consciousness is discovering itself in its own state of evolution, my choice was to use this life force that I have for as long as I have it, which, no idea how long that will be, but to use this for as long as I have it to help aid in this evolution of this consciousness, to help aid in this, let's step up into, we need to ascend to recognize our interconnectedness with one another, to right the wrongs of our past, because as human beings, and this interweaves with what we're going to be doing with the guided visualization as well, as human beings, we are creatures of habit. It's very easy for us, once we do something, to do it again, and then again, and then again, and we're not thinking about it at all, we're just doing it. And then this passes down both individually, but also culturally and familially. And as much as we are creatures of habit who can just, this is what we do because this is what we do, we're also conscious beings. While sometimes easier and sometimes more difficult, we always have the capacity, the ability to create change, to do something else. It takes attention, it takes awareness, it takes presence, it takes consciousness to break habit, to do that which you don't do, to break the generational chains, to heal traumas so that you can move from a more healthy place, or we can. And so this is your opportunity, each and every one of you, to shift the habit patterns of the past generations, to not be willfully blind, willfully ignorant of what's been done in the past, but to own and recognize, look, our history has not been pretty. And we can create heaven on earth. Yes, we can create heaven on earth. And so, enjoy this pleasure. This pleasure is a reminder to us. In a world that can create so much contraction, so much stress, where news cycles that are constantly feeding us fear, allow your heart to be blown open. Allow yourself to experience pleasure and orgasmic ecstasy. And releases. And that remind your entire body and system of divinity, really. What is orgasm if not an opportunity for us to experience divine bliss in this physical form? And as we have these experiences and learn to extend them and to deepen them, allow it to remind you, like, how do we bring more of this into our lives? Because to me, that's a big part of what Tantra is. It's not just about let's have lots of sex. It's how do we take this bliss that we're discovering and make each moment bliss, find bliss in each moment. Because the truth is, finding bliss in each moment is a radical concept. Radical concept. But when we discover our capacity that you can find bliss in the simplest thing as taking a breath, and that breath is with you at all times, ever available to you, then may it be a reminder that, like, what are we doing? What is this world that we have created? Does this really support the bliss that we have the capacity? Can you imagine if these blissful experiences that you've had in your sexual peak experiences, in weekends like this, not always necessarily about the content itself, but about the feeling, that bliss type feeling. If that was what our world, day in and day, if the structures of our civilization were built to support that as a way of life, what would that world be? There's only one way it's going to happen. You. When there's 7 billion people on the planet, it can feel really disempowering. Who am I? What can I do? Gil Scott-Heron, a poet from the 70s, said that no one can do everything, but everybody can do something. What are you doing? What are you going to do? So the evolved masculine. I believe that the foundational piece of what is being called forth from the evolved masculine in our particular time period is to create a world in which the feminine feels truly safe to blossom into her fullness. That is not the world we currently live in. And yet, women are blossoming left and right. Look around. That's how powerful she is. And these fully blossomed, radiant feminine women are a definite minority because the world is not safe for them. How will it be safe? You.
Well, that answer, of course, is you, me, us. What will make it safe is for women rising up and finding their own voice and their own power and their own capacity to create that safety, as well as for men to really draw a line, to make clear what's not acceptable, to hold our brothers accountable, to help guide one another to a better way. A way that's not only in greater harmony, not only allows the feminine to flourish more deeply, but actually also allows us to have more of what we really want as well. And moving into our last section.
Being a stand for something, doing something, like this can be done on the, how a man just like lives his life and engages with his life, right? I'm like, no, actually no. Maybe that was okay at one time. We are in difficult times. We are. The only way to not be aware is willful ignorance. And what that looks like For you, I can't say. What that means and how it shows up, I can't say. And the truth is, I can't say anything about how you live your life, what choices you make. Only you can ultimately do that. My hope is that this, it said that the masculine is strengthened through challenge. This is your fucking challenge. What are you gonna do? I don't care. Your expression is going to look very different from my own. There are so many different ways. But unfortunately, this is the thing about our time. Like, there's so many things, quote unquote, wrong. There's so many things that aren't the way that you and I both know that they could be. That you have no end of choices. Of like, what do you want to help repair? Is it how people relate to love and sex? Is it how men and women relate to one another? Is it something around our economic system, the raping and pillaging of this planet, our banking system, how businesses are done and handled? Is it something else entirely? No end of choices. How big, how small? That's your call. But I challenge you to do something. With this one wild, precious life.
And for the not good guy, could your program help him challenge himself?
Thank you. Well, he is not a plant. Yes, and then some. The root of the evolved masculine path has been covering three main areas. What I call deep masculine empowerment, or evolved masculine empowerment. Your sense of yourself, your challenging of yourself. You're becoming more of a man that you know deep in your heart. You know deep in your heart you're capable of being. That sense of purpose, a sense of strength and power. The second main area is sexual self-mastery. Understanding and knowing your sexuality. Understanding the sexual energy that flows through you, which of course has some nice marketable fun perks of becoming truly a choice over when and if you ejaculate. Let that one land. Experiencing full body orgasms versus genitally based, what was that again? Non-ejaculatory orgasms, male multiple orgasms. Those are nice and marketable, don't get me wrong, they're wonderful. Very. And to me, it's that aspect of sexual self-mastery as path of life mastery. Like, sexual energy is powerful life force energy. To master this life force energy that flows through your body, your sexual energy is core to that. And the third is understanding and gratifying women. Who is this new emerging evolved woman? What is this she wants? How do you rise to meet her? Clearly this conscious, empowered woman is a different breed. She wants, needs, demands different things of a man she's going to welcome into her temple, so to speak. How do you meet that? How do you meet her physically, sexually, intellectually, emotionally, spiritually?
By now it should be clear whether this is resonant with you or not. Does something really hit you? I mean, honestly, if you're still listening to this by this point, something is affecting you. Maybe it's your calling. Maybe it's your destiny. Maybe it's something in you that's like, there is something here for me. Maybe something even that's really big. We're gathering right now for our next iteration of the Evolved Masculine Path. We always pull together a really incredible set of men who, like you, are committed to a path of constant growth, constant evolution, becoming more and more conscious of themselves and their lives, and becoming more of who they're really capable of being in this world. If you feel a call, reach out to us. You could send me a message at Destin, DESTIN, at evolvedmasculine.com. You could go to evolvedmasculine.com and click a link and fill out a form there. You can reach out to us through facebook.com/evolvedmasculine, our new public Facebook page. many ways. But reach out, and myself or one of our leadership guys will reach out to you. We'll explore this. This doesn't even need to be a commitment, because we can't commit to you yet either. We need to make sure that this is a fit on both sides, that it feels like a fuck yes for us to bring you in, for you to be part of this. And with that, well, get ready for your whole world to change. By now, you know what I stand for. What do you stand for? What are you willing to be a stand for? And are you willing to do whatever it takes to become that man, to be that stand? Reach out. Let's do this. This is Destin Garrick, and you've been listening to The Evolved Masculine, redefining sex, power, and success. Peace.